I'm Chance.
And I'm Sarah Catherine.
And this is Conservation Connection,
presented by Last Chance Endeavors.
We are a husband and wife team running a wildlife education nonprofit. It's focused on connecting students to their environment.
Each week, here on Conservation Connection, we do just that, introducing you to the groundbreaking science and conservation work that's happening every day across the globe.
We talk to professionals in the world of conservation science and wildlife management, and we ask them about their career,
their current projects,
their wild and crazy stories from the field,
and everything in between.
This episode is a collaboration with EarthX here in Dallas, Texas.
EarthX is the largest Earth Day celebration in the world, and it brings in speakers from every corner of the environmental arena.
Listen in to hear the stories of today's environmental titans, covering everything from environmental law, ocean health, renewable energy, clean transportation, and so much more.
Let's get to the show.
Alrighty guys, welcome to another episode of Conservation Connection. We are here in Dallas, Texas for EarthX 2022, sitting in their EarthX podcast studio. We are incredibly excited for this opportunity to sit down with Shonagh Smith, who is the host of Road to Glasgow on EarthxTV.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
So, can you just give me real quick, for any listeners who may not know the show, what is Road to Glasgow about?
Yeah, Road to Glasgow was highlighting a series of conferences and meetings leading up to COP26, which was the big UN Global Climate Conference in Glasgow, Scotland in November. So yeah, we went around the US, but also to different countries to go to different kind of pre-COP conferences just to highlight the hot topic issues and talk to experts.
And kind of to set the stage for this meeting where there's these negotiations being made and all of this discussion about how are we achieving or not achieving our goals of preventing climate change, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think one of the main points of the show was actually about like all talk and no action. So it was kind of funny that we were there to cover conferences where people are talking a lot, and it's kind of like, I think that was one of the frustrating part. It's the frustrating part for everybody, is here we are just talking about these things a lot and what's actually being done. So that was a main theme of the show, and kind of, figuring out what is actually being done, what technologies are being developed, what exists, what are the challenges, and trying to see, there's a very political aspect to this issue. We were really making it an effort to talk to people from the left and from the right to see why we can't agree all the time, because ultimately we actually all want the same thing. Don't know if I went on a tangent, but yeah, that's kind of what we were focusing on.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get too much more into your journey throughout this series, I want to ask, how did you get involved with EarthX and EarthxTV? What is the story that kind of led up to that? And what made you resonate with this series?
Yeah, so I'm an actor, film and television actor, and this came to me as an opportunity through my agent, kind of like any audition really. But it was very different from the start, I could tell, because it was not acting in the sense, it was hosting. And they said, "Are you interested?" And it was like, "Do you care about the environment?" Yes. "Are you Scottish?" Yes.
I was going to ask if that was one of the main
It was
things.
one of the main criteria, and they were kind of casting their net in the US and specifically Texas. And I was like, I think I'm the only one. Like,
So you were already in Texas.
yeah, I was in Austin. I was
Okay.
like, I'm Scottish, young, vibrant, care
Check,
about
check,
the environment. Let's do it, And then they were promising a trip to New York City. So I thought,
Yeah, the
I'll
best sign up.
Yeah, so I really, I thought, you know what, this would be a really cool way to actually do something. Because I've always been outdoorsy. I've always loved this stuff, but never really been particularly educated about the actual debates. And so I thought this would be a good opportunity to learn. And that's exactly what I did. So I auditioned, I got it, and then we shot the pilot in New York.
So in that process of learning about these things that you felt like you weren't necessarily educated about, I know for us on the podcast, sometimes I have anxieties about like, oh, we're interviewing like the scientist who does research that I I don't even know what this word is that they're researching.
Oh,
And so it's like figuring it out and being able to conduct an interview on, on this formal conversational level that the whole point is to learn. But how did you feel going into that environment where you're like, hi, I may not know what I'm doing?
Terrified. I was terrified. I had never interviewed anyone before I did that on camera. So yeah, when it comes to certain experts, particularly people like, for me, financial people, I'm like, ugh.
I totally get that. I'm the same way. I can talk to a scientist all day long, and then you talk to me about a percentage on a bank account, and I'm like,
I get really overwhelmed. Because you start to feel like, oh my gosh, imposter syndrome, right? Like I'm not smart enough to talk to this person, but so yeah, I was really anxious. But you really just fake it till you make it. I mean, wow. If I've learned how to do one thing, it's pretend that I'm super comfortable talking to you about what you do. But, Dan Milliken, the director, was really sweet. And we kind of positioned my role, so to speak, as a young truth seeker who doesn't really understand but wants to know more. And so I was kind of playing that part, but also that was true. So once I adopted that perspective of, you don't need to know everything. It's okay that you don't understand. Like, go into it like truly bamboozled. And, and so that helped.
and that's so much more engaging, right? When you're saying like, hey, I really don't know, and you do know, and we have this opportunity to, not only for me personally to learn, but to learn in front of an audience who is therefore also learning as well.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, for me, I do that a lot with the podcast. I just have to tell myself, my job is not to know everything. I'm not the expert on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to ask the questions and then try to just hold on to that rodeo bowl of a conversation, right?
Mm-hmm. And then trying to maintain a sense of neutrality when I was interviewing people who were very much opposite politically and saying things I just didn't agree with.
Yeah.
And just, okay, Yeah.
It's just giving everyone that space to like express,
Yes.
what they're expressing.
And it's very important to do that. So I was humbled in a lot of ways.
That's a lot of personal growth to be willing to just sit down and have a conversation with somebody who you completely disagree with.
It's so easy to hate and to create an us versus them mindset, and you can't do that. If I learned one thing, it's you have to be willing to work with people that you do not agree with if you want to solve big issues. It's a very maybe generic thing to say, but it's so true.
And it's something that we've kind of forgotten as a global society. When I get frustrated with people in my own camp, right? People on the same side, and I hate even in this conversation that I'm saying their sides, but that frustration almost always stems from the fact that this other person that we're talking to is unwilling to just have a conversation without it devolving into an argument, right? You have to enter into these spaces with the idea that we don't have to agree. We just have to get something done.
Yep. I did find it quite nice, though. I think because my background is in acting, I'm trained and I love finding the humanity in people. Everybody is really interesting and really sweet if you look for it. And so kind of trying to understand, wow, you believe that thing that I do not believe. What could possibly be motivating that? What are you afraid of? What do you love? And just getting through to the heart of people, I think, is super important when you're talking about things that are like this awful. Yeah, these are really hard things to talk about sometimes. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. The future of our existence.
Yeah,
no big deal.
Casual, no biggie. Yeah.
So yeah.
To kind of turn a corner here and take another topic of conversation, what were some of the really unexpected experiences you had in the filming of the show? Because you were doing a lot of traveling, you were talking to a lot of different people. What surprised you the most?
Maybe just the people I got to sit down with, because it wasn't always politicians and stuff. Yesterday I got to interview some rugby players. I didn't expect to be able to sit down with some congressmen, some senators. That was really cool. Kind of goes back to the whole imposter syndrome. Like, whoa, I can't believe I'm sitting with this person. Like, oh, I don't know if I'm important enough to be here.
Right.
Yeah, and just being able to be in different countries was cool. You always get to experience. I mean, I went to Italy, not for the first time, but it was my first real trip, I suppose. And just seeing all the different culture. And, oh, you know what? The COVID, we were shooting in the middle of COVID.
That was going to be my next
Yeah,
question.
It was quite scary.
What was the experience of that like?
it was really tedious. I mean, just like testing a lot and freaking out at like TSA or whatever because, oh my God, I didn't realize I had to have this specific document and stuff.
And those requirements were changing pretty
Yeah.
frequently. So you're never sure. You're always
never
like, I
sure.
don't know if I have what I need.
And literally, like, it's one of these, like, mathematical impossibilities where it was like, you had to get your PCR 3 days before your flight, and no more or no less. And also, it takes 3 days to get the results back. Also, you have to have the results back by the time you're checking in. But if you don't, like, you're just screwed.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what?
It's like, sorry, you can't go.
You know? And then it's like, well, what if it were to be positive? Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, the whole show,
Right,
everyone
yeah.
would hate me. And like, you're like, what if it's positive? And then you would be out there in Italy, like coughing or something, like, oh no, it's
Yeah.
COVID.
Might have it.
I'm
It's
gonna
me.
be stuck in Italy, you know. So just it was a hard shoot for that reason. And COP26 itself in Glasgow, just the process of getting into that building was incredible. Just like the security, you had to go through this line. It took like an hour to get into this event just from like COVID barriers.
Wow.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
So, speaking of, the show is called Road to Glasgow. And so, tell us about that road. What were some of the stops you made along the way? We already know it was an interesting process because of COVID, but
Yeah.
what were some of the stops, some of your favorite stops?
Well, so New York City was the first one. And then it's funny, we didn't quite have the budget we wanted to go to Scotland as well as New York for the pilot,
Okay.
but we didn't have the budget for that. And COVID was really complicated with international travel. So we decided to drive from New York City to Rhode Island and find like a kind of rocky beach on like
Scenic.
a cloudy day. And we totally passed it off as Scotland. When you're watching the show, you'll see the opening graphics. It's me in like a wax jacket, which is a very British thing to wear. And like posing. Oh my gosh, it's actually kind of cheesy, but like I was enjoying myself. And in Rhode Island on this like golf course, and then
Yeah,
Oh,
the golf course, you know, very Scottish.
And then also I was like, we got to pass things off as Scotland, and I found like a mossy covered stone. I was like, that looks like Scotland. And we would go and like stand by the mossy stone. And
Did you bring any sheep in?
No, I wish. But we totally passed it off. And we were at the Central Park Zoo. And if you look in the Central Park Zoo, there's certain areas that have cobblestones.
Okay.
And I was like, cobblestones, like...
That's Scottish?
That's so, like, yeah, that's so old and Scottish. So I was like, get my feet walking on the cobblestone. They shot it. We passed it off. It's in the opening sequence. You'll think it's Scotland, and it's New York City.
So,
I
insider
cannot wait.
look for anyone listening and watching the show. You know the truth now.
Yeah, it's all fake. It's Hollywood magic. No, we did actually go to Scotland. That was our last stop. Thrilling for me because I've never gotten to actually work in Scotland. I've only ever kind of vacationed there since I left. But so it was New York, Washington, D.C., the hottest place on the planet. I really was burning up in D.C. And France, Marseille, France, Italy, and I think that's it. We were going to go to Kunming, China, which I was stoked because I'd never been to China.
Yeah.
But it got cancelled because of COVID.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That would have been pretty interesting, but makes sense. China, hard to get into.
Yeah. Very, especially nowadays with all of the precautions that are happening. 100%.
So, yeah, those were all the stops. Oh, and we went to Milan, Italy for the youth summit and the pre-COP, and that was cool.
I'm sure that was beautiful.
Oh, yeah, and I randomly went to like a concert because they had a guy, if you watch the show, his name's A.Y. Young, and he's like a rapper, but he raps about the environment.
Oh,
He
yeah.
is one in a million. Not many people are doing that. He raps about saving the planet. Yeah. So we went to like a concert. That was one of the most surprising things. I did not expect myself to be.
At an Enviro rap concert
Yeah.
in Italy.
Oh yeah. It was super bizarre.
That's-
yeah. was
were you just standing there like, how did I get here?
Oh yeah. I was like, wow, like this is really cool. Like they're paying me to do this, you know?
Yeah.
Fantastic food in Italy.
I believe it.
yes.
I believe it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Italians do like their food. They're pretty proud of that.
I mean,
for good reason.
everybody knows that it's good, but yeah, it was actually really good.
Yeah.
So it was
But you
very
can
fun.
say it's good.
It was a really fun shoot. And sometimes it was a slog. France was really hard.
Yeah.
I remember France was really hard. Long days. But worth it. You can't tell when you watch the show.
That's why you do what you do.
Oh, okay. One thing I have to say. We talked with like a priest or like this bishop guy, like really high up religious figure in Italy at sunset in this cathedral.
Oh,
I don't, if you have to see it to believe it, but I was like, wow, this is crazy. And he was talking to me about, you know, how the religious community has been like not thought of as a part of the environmental movement, but now it's like coming together. And I was like, wow. So that was really cool.
which is a fun thing to bring up when we're talking about EarthxTV, because I know that there's another program on EarthxTV that is looking specifically at how religion and spirituality in different cultures relates to this green movement. So if that's intriguing to you, not only should you go watch Road to Glasgow, but you should check out some of the other offerings on EarthxTV.
So important. Talk about a massive population of people on Earth.
Right.
If you could get on board, because if you use the angle of this is God's creation, we want to preserve and protect and love God's creation, you know, you can really get a lot of people on board.
Right. And pretty much every major religion has some sort of a caveat of like stewardship over the earth, or some sort of holy imperative to take care of the creation. Right. And so that's regardless of your audiences, where they're coming from. That is a very important thing to bring up if we're talking about spirituality and the environment.
Yeah.
How long was the whole experience for you of filming, and how did you see yourself grow throughout the process?
Like how long did it take?
Yeah.
We started shooting in March and we wrapped in November at the end of the COP. So we didn't go from March to November though. We took breaks. Like I would go home and then come in. So however many months that is. How did I grow? Well, I wasn't as terrified at the end of talking to people. Definitely gained a serious sense of confidence just as whatever this is. I mean, I'm not a journalist, but, you know, talking to people as an interviewer, I got better at that. And, you know, like I was saying about learning how to speak to people from different political backgrounds, you know, me personally, I'm on one end, the crew I was working with, they're on the other. Very much opposites, but we worked together, and working on the script together and having productive conversations. I learned a lot about how to properly debate with people in a respectful, kind way, because there's a way to do it. There really is. So I got good at that. I've always shied away from like politics and debate. I don't like those kind of conversations. I like want to run away from them usually. So I've gotten way more comfortable with that. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's always fun for me to look back at the end of a project or the end of a milestone and contemplate the ways in which I have changed and grown, and that's really a fun time.
Yeah. Oh, and I've learned a lot, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Obviously.
Besides all of just the pure knowledge that you've gained, I'm sure.
It's kind of like every time we do a podcast, it's like, oh, well, I know something new about this now.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I feel like I'm more equipped to actually intelligently talk about things and have opinions on carbon capture policy. Never would have thought that before, you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
So what is next for you, and what's next for kind of this idea of Road to Glasgow?
Well, we're in the process of putting together a pitch and a new concept for another version of Road to Glasgow, because so every year they do the COP in a different city. That we're hoping to maybe do another season, another show for that COP. Maybe toying a little bit with the structure. So Road to Glasgow was very much like conferences and meetings and talking to those people, but we're maybe hoping to get our feet a little bit more on the ground, and instead of going to conferences, maybe going to factories where they're making new technologies, or, you know, kind of like seeing things more in real life rather than in a conference room.
Adding another layer on top of that discussion and that
talking
legislative process.
This is above my pay grade. But that's, you know, ideas we're playing with. So hopefully that is what happens.
Cool.
And yeah.
Have you done other acting jobs since COP26, since Road to Glasgow?
Yeah. I shot a film called Killers of the Flower Moon. It's Martin Scorsese directing.
Awesome.
And so I shot that. I shot it in the middle of doing Road to Glasgow. So I'm really excited about that. That was really cool. And you should probably go see it. I think it'll be a really good movie.
You probably should. Yes.
Yeah. I think they're slated to release in November. But yeah, so
That's awesome.
that's
Cool.
what's up next for me, and hopefully more stuff as well.
Great. I will go watch the show now. I'm sad to say that before this interview, I did not get the chance to watch the show.
You
But
don't know how many people's books I didn't read. And like... You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm excited to watch the show and
Yes.
be like, haha, I know that's not Scotland. That's New York City.
But some of it
Rhode
is
Island.
Scotland.
Right.
It's
No, in
not
the
all
beginning.
fake.
Just in the intro. Just the intro.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm very excited for it. So if you guys listening are interested in checking out this show, it's on EarthxTV, which can be found on EarthxTV.com. So you guys scroll down to the show notes. I'm going to drop a link right there so you guys can go from the podcast to checking out this awesome program.
Thank you so much for being on the show with us today, and we can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. This was fun.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conservation Connection.
If you enjoyed our podcast, go ahead and subscribe to make sure you catch every episode that we post.
We'd love to hear from you. So if you want to reach out, go to our website, lastchanceendeavors.com/contact and shoot us an email.
We love questions from our listeners, so if you heard something that you want to know more about, be sure to let us know.
If you've got a minute to spare, leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts will help other conservation-minded people find the show. We'd really appreciate it.
A big thanks to the people working to protect our planet, and a big thanks to you for listening. Don't forget to tune in next week.